Connect is an experimental project that brought together 10 teenagers to see what would happen if we made a show with those teenagers where they were the performers in a show for an audience of babies. This project was inspired by three things really. The first thing was a project called Roots of Empathy, which has been going for a number of years now, that started in Canada and then kind of spread around the world, including to Ireland. And what Roots of Empathy does is it takes a baby and a parent, and through a process of them going into a primary school, it acts as a platform for the kids in the primary school to explore empathy, really. The second sort of source of inspiration was I took a baby show called Tiny to South Africa to work with a company called Magnet Theatre, to work with them to kind of catalyse them making the first ever baby show in South Africa. While I was working with them, I had lots of conversations with their artistic director, Jenny Resnick, and she was talking about work that they'd done previously with very young children and the unexpected impact that it had had actually on the performers themselves, who were kind of late teens, early 20s, and that really stuck with me. And the third source of inspiration was simply my own experience of performing in this way in my own shows for babies and how it made me feel. And so I got to thinking, well, what if you take a bunch of teenagers who are at a similarly but very different neuroplastic time in their lives to babies, a time where many things are changing, where their sense of self is constantly being questioned, when they're very defensive, very vulnerable, changing all the time. And what if you take them and work in this way with babies? What impact does that have on them? And that was the question I wanted to ask myself with the Connect project.
I'm worried that I won't perform to the best of my ability.
I'm scared of being out of my comfort zone and like making a fool of myself.
A bit nervous about if the baby's crying or if they won't stop crying or how loud they'd be crying.
I'm not really worried about anything, I just want to make this a fun experience.
The thing I'm probably most scared about is working so close to the babies and like hoping they don't get too scared of what I'm going to be doing with them.
The one thing I'm probably most scared of is probably interacting with the babies, mainly because I don't want to get puked on at all.
I don't want like a lot of little people to be judging like my every move, which is kind of the intention of the next 2 weeks. I don't want to make one cry, I don't want to upset a small person.
I felt because this project was so experimental, in fact we don't really know if anyone's ever done anything like this before with such young performers. I really wanted to bring in research partners to be able to track it in a more rigorous and scientific way than the kind of anecdotal evidence or feedback that I might collect. And I discovered that in Trinity University in Dublin there was a facility called Immalab, which specifically studies the teenage brain. So I contacted Dr. Claire Kelly, who is the principal investigator at Immalab, and coincidentally it turned out that when her baby was very young, they had been part of the Roots of Empathy project, and she got very excited about getting involved in it, and she found 3 MA students who were very interested in coming along and each having a slightly different project looking at the Connect project and tracking it to look at the impact that working in this way with babies had on the teenagers.
I'm interested in seeing if involvement in this project over the 2 weeks kind of has an impact on the teenagers' general well-being and their sense of social connectedness, given the massive social element to the project, because they'll have to collaborate with each other and figure out how to work with the babies. So I think it might have great impact on their well-being.
I'm interested in the overall effect of this kind of social bonding experience on the students' creative problem solving skills. So specifically, we're kind of hoping to see that the social influence will have a positive effect on their convergent problem solving skills. So that really means their ability to exercise logic, reason and evaluation. So I'm doing that kind of at an individual level and at a group level through the Lego.
So what I'm looking at is, so Anna usually gets the participants to imitate the babies. It's going to happen, and through that we believe that it creates higher empathy levels. So I'm gonna look at their empathy levels before they do the intervention and then afterwards. And the idea would be that through mirror neurons, through imitating the baby so much, their empathy levels would have improved towards them.
I'm interested really in hearing directly from them what their experience of it is. So by doing that, I'm doing focus groups at the beginning and the end, kind of seeing if there's a change in how they talk about, working with other people and the idea of what benefits you can get from social connections and their well-being. And that's kind of balanced by questionnaires as well, which they've answered, which are kind of these validated psychological questionnaires.
I'm using a task that's called the Remote Associates Test. So it basically just gives them a problem, and they have to think of an answer, and basically based on their accuracy and their timing and things like that in the task, it will tell us kind of how good they are at their convergent problem solving skills. And then from a qualitative point of view, we're using Anna's lovely Lego play. So we've created this kind of scale or rubric that kind of has indicators of convergent problem solving in groups. So basically we just got to observe, and anything that we thought was relevant we would kind of give a mark to and write the observation down. So we're hoping to see that over time, over the next 2 weeks, that all these skills will massively improve as a result of being engaged in the project.
We have a facial recognition task. So it's a computer task, and they see different faces come up, and they have to type which face they see. So if it's happy, neutral, sad, and they need to do it as fast as possible. And then also they're doing a questionnaire, which is the IRI questionnaire, and basically it's 28 questions all designed to test empathy levels. So they'll do both of them, the task and the questionnaire, at the start and after, and then we'll see if there's been any difference.
Lego Serious Play is a facilitation methodology that I was lucky enough to be trained in earlier this year, and it has huge amounts of applications. And for this particular task, it was about using it both to show the group doing a collaborative task and to explore how they might do that, but also as a way for everyone to introduce themselves to everybody else on a really kind of level playing field, and hopefully one that was a bit fun too. So we spent day 2 and 3 essentially making a journey that was going to get us ready to have something to perform to babies. And that was a kind of complex process in that we were also attempting to build the group, and we were attempting to build the skills that they would need to be able to make this show. And some of those were quite specific in terms of finding ways to use particular objects in a way that may well engage the babies. Some of it was about learning a little piece of music, but lots of it was about the kind of atmosphere that I think is really essential, that I believe is really the optimum conditions to engage babies, which is an environment that's really calm but really focused, that's really relaxed, and where both parents and babies feel that they can have agency, that they can respond how they want to. So all of that's quite a complex set of things. So it was trying to spend a couple of days imparting some of that whilst building the group, whilst practically getting something together for a show, and also in that weird situation where the kind of things that you do to make a baby show feel very odd when babies aren't there, and you add teens who've just arrived into a project, and who could probably be quite easily embarrassed into the mix. And it was a really tricky tightrope to walk in terms of making that journey and trying to keep everybody on board. And then on the Thursday, babies came in. It always surprises people how early babies come into the process. And whether, even if people are really experienced professional performers, the fact that babies come in that early in the process can often be a surprise, can be a bit scary. But for me, none of it really makes sense until the babies are there. Because this way of working is so much about trying to make a connection. It's so much about having a conversation. And all we're doing in the few days before is exploring strategies, is looking at ways in which we could communicate. But the other side of the conversation isn't there. So yeah, babies came in on Thursday, and I think there was a certain amount of excitement, there was a certain amount of trepidation, and for me, I thought the teenagers did amazingly. I thought they were extraordinary. I thought they created a really beautiful environment to welcome the babies into, and I think they maybe even surprised themselves.
So I thought there was a really calm, connected energy in the group, and the babies seemed to notice this and engage with it and kind of mirrored it themselves. I think that was helped as well by the almost hypnotic movements of everyone.
I thought it was really, really powerful. I wasn't able to take my eyes away. I thought the guys were great. The singing was probably my favourite part, to see all the babies light up. I think they really engaged with it.
I like the energy of the group, and I'm surprised how calm and cute the babies are.
I found it a bit strange and hard to relax into, but once I got into it, I had a good time.
I was surprised how engaged the babies were when we got started, but with some parts of the performance I found quite difficult to get into.
I liked how calm and focused the babies were.
I was surprised by how engaged all the babies were and how interested the parents also were. And all the actions that we practiced beforehand made much more sense and done them to the babies.
And also none of them got sick, which was good.
And then, having made the journey we made in the first week, at the beginning of the second week, I wanted to create a situation where they had a little bit more agency and where they got to work collaboratively in an even more challenging way. So we put them into smaller groups, and there was various objects, props available to them. And having talked a bit about what the kind of things I think about when I'm putting together a baby show, we asked them to devise something themselves in those smaller groups. We asked them to present those things to the rest of the group. We asked them to present them in a number of ways. And then we took a number of things from each of the groups, decided which thing they wanted to offer. And then as a group, they had to decide what they might make collaboratively. And we put that together, we performed that for babies again, and then I took what they'd made and edited a little bit and changed a few things, and then we performed it again. And they'd been so extraordinary with the babies in the first week that I'd actually started to ask myself, was 1 week enough? And that was really answered for me in those third and fourth sessions with the babies, where something just shifted in them as individuals, in them as a group. Some of them who had been more tentative in the first couple of performances, really engaged and really took risks, and others who had been able to make connections with the babies in those first performances took it so much further, and it felt that there was this extraordinary shift in them as individuals, and really specifically in them as a group over the course of those second and third performances. One of the really exciting things about the project was how the parents who brought babies in, how they responded. A number of them mentioned how impressed they were with the teenagers. But actually beyond that, lots of them didn't even seem to spot that they were teenage performers. What they were talking about was how their baby engaged and how chatty their baby was after the session, and how extraordinary it was that there were 10 babies in a room for 20 minutes and nobody cried. And on top of their own internal journey, I think that affirmation for the teenagers was a whole other layer in terms of the transformation that happened in the course of the project.
I think it was so much fun. I think it was it was a great experience. The like connection and just the like joy and like the rush you'd get afterwards. It was just so much fun.
And I think now that I've done this, I think I'm more confident to do much more new, whether it be weird or unique aspects of theatre. I feel much more confident to explore these areas.
The calmness that this project taught me will like, I know, help me continue being like more of a calm person, like less anxious.
Process was really good, but the first week I was just like, I couldn't push myself out of my comfort zone. Like I didn't know really how to apply myself to it all. But I think the next week I gained more confidence.
I really enjoyed the 2 weeks. Like I was coming into it and I didn't know if I would, but I actually I really enjoyed it, and it's like the whole experience of it, like meeting the babies and meeting new people, because I only knew one person coming in.
My life is so stressful, and then the last 2 weeks I was so calm. And then,
it's like it actually doesn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Like babies don't judge.
You can't walk out of it not feeling like light and happy and just really like you know what I mean, like you can't not walk out of it and not feel good.
Looking back on the project now, my notion of what would happen after it has really changed. When I originally applied to Wicklow County Arts Office for the funding to do this project, my idea was that perhaps when we finished it, if we found that it had a really good impact on the teens, that we would perhaps roll it out with other transition year students, other teenagers. But I was reminded so strongly during it of how profound that thing is when the deeply human desire to connect meets babies in this particular arena, in this particular set of circumstances. And so now I'm thinking much more about what if we take this model and explore it with other groups for whom making a connection in this way could be equally profound, could be equally transformative. Vulnerable groups who have become closed off. And I was reminded yet again how extraordinary it is to connect with babies in this way, how profound that connection can be, and how much they can teach us. How much babies can teach us about communicating, about connecting with other people, and about connecting with ourselves.